William, pay attention, learn something new, live a good life. This was the blueprint for success for my parents, and they spent every minute reminding me. By the time I was in the 5th grade, I decided to fulfill their wishes, and I learned 6 words: who, what, when, where, why, and how. I always told stories ever since I was little to kind of make sense of the world around me. Even at school, like, teachers would ask me like questions, and I would have to like think of the information, but then I always ask why, and then all these ideas would just pop up. I also shared a room with my sister, and we will always talk late at night, and we will talk till like mid-hours of the night. And sometimes she will pass out before I would, and I would just still be talking to her. And then once I heard her snore, I'd be like, okay, time to go to sleep. So capital storytelling is kind of trying to break that notion of like, no, everybody can be a storyteller. You just have to allow yourself to trust the process of storytelling. I kind of like to think of it as like singing, right? Before, people would sing and chant in like large groups. But then nowadays, it's like, you know, people that have the opportunity to sing are people that have quote unquote nice sounding voices, right? But then it's like, what happens when we relegate singing to only people who can sing well? Why don't we just break down the idea that, you know, singing is just not for people who sing well. Singing can be done by everyone, right? And I feel that's the same way with storytelling. I think that people can be a good storyteller as long as they give themselves permission.
Russians was to sing a cappella in the courtyard or school. That's what you call leadership skills.
I'm bombarding my teachers with questions at any opportunity I can. What is the word for animals that only eat plants? Herbivores, William. Herbivores. When do carnivores eat again? When they catch their prey, William. Okay. How did people become omnivores? Through evolution, William. What's evolution? By the end of the week, my teacher and I were both mentally and emotionally exhausted. But luckily for me, Saturday was my day for self-care. I will wake up bright and early on Saturdays and plop myself right in front of the television. I like to think of myself as somebody who is a learner. I think that the world has a vast amount of knowledge that I am not privy to, nor do I have time to develop that expertise. But luckily there are like, 7 billion people on Earth that have many different interests and passions, you know? If I can link up with these people, they can share their expertise. And I was about to take my first bite of my breakfast, I see something orange at the corner of my eye, and I noticed that on the carpet was a big orange koi fish about the size of my forearm, just laying there. Who let the koi fish out of the tank? Where did the lid of the fish tank go? Why does it stink? The aroma of room temperature fish was really killing my appetite for my breakfast. And as the newly anointed adult, I had to solve this issue. Turtles are omnivores. We have a pet turtle. I could feed this koi fish to my pet turtle. So I grabbed this koi fish and it slips out of my hand because my arms weren't big enough to get a good grip. But then all of a sudden, the theme song to the Pokemon show comes on. So I pick up the koi fish like a football and I rush to the bathroom. As I get through the door, I toss the fish into the fish tank where the turtle lived. The turtle chomp, 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 chomp on the fish like the apex predator it was supposed to be. And I stood there in amazement because I actually applied what I learned in school to real life. Right? Like, we're learning about the circle of life and I'm watching it right there. But then I hear that the Pokemon theme song is about to be over and I cannot miss any second of it. So I rush back out the door.
Being a lifelong learner affects my identity as a storyteller. It allows me to remain curious. It allows me to remain open, right? I'm not only about open to other people, but also open to myself. It really allows me to be able to explore my experiences at a later point in time and kind of unravel certain meanings.
William, why is half of my koi fish in the turtle tank? Well, Dad, I woke up and it was lying on the carpet, and I learned that in school, you know, you can complete the circle of life if you give an omnivore meat to eat. What? I don't care what you learned in school. Koi fishes are good luck, William. If you ever feed my koi fish to this turtle again, you will not have a life cycle anymore, boy. I paid attention. I learned something new. But all I got was this big throbbing headache. Some life lessons are just not taught in school.